We've all felt those situations where we feel despair, we feel discouragement, and we don't feel like moving forward. As you pursue, as you knock, as you wait, you will get an answer. And this is the case even if you're not a spiritual person. Welcome to another episode of the Grow Time Business Devotional, where we explore God's principles for living a high-performance life and a God-honoring life. I'm Kenneth, and today I'm going to talk to you about my personal devotional this morning. These episodes and these devotionals are for people that want to live a high-performance and God-honoring life. It's actually for me, and it's for people like me, right? And so I'm someone who has a lot of ambition. I'm someone who likes to keep moving. All the entrepreneurs I know, all the people who aspire to be something really, really great or have a drive to do something really, really great, all the business people, they all like to move. They all like to keep pushing forward. It's fulfilling. It's how you get your energy. And there is something to that. Momentum is a real thing. Momentum, when lost, is hard to regain. Okay, so there's something to that. So this verse challenges that, but I don't think it really challenges the idea of it. I think it can be challenging to digest, though. And I think there's a lot of value in it. This is Psalm 40, verse 1. This is a Psalm of David. And it goes like this. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined to me, and he heard my cry. He also brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, set my feet upon a rock, and established my steps. He has put a new song in my mouth. Praise to our God. Then it says, many will see it and fear and will trust in the Lord. The thing that really jumps out and I think is probably the most obvious and interesting is the fact that this says, I waited patiently for the Lord, which is a hard concept. Waiting, patience is not necessarily the thing that most of us that are made this way enjoy, right? Like where we're pursuing something, waiting, patience, those are hard things. And I looked up like that word waiting from what does it mean? Like, what are the various translations saying? You know, and I'm not a Bible scholar, but it turns out as I looked at everything, that word waiting, or I waited, what it means is waited. It's it. Everyone says basically the same thing. It means waited. That's what jumps out first. Now, I would say this, as I dig into this, and I've kind of like dissected this first for myself before, like, what does this mean? Here's some thoughts on it. I think are really powerful. This is a Psalm of David. David was a high performance individual. David was obviously the king of Israel. He was a conqueror. He was courageous. He was brave. He killed Goliath. He was a man after God's own heart. David was not lazy. David did not lack ambition. David did not lack achievements. You know, David was in some really challenging times. Clearly, he was in a challenging time right now, right? There was something going on that was stressing him out, and he had a lot to be stressed out about throughout the course of his life. And in that moment where we all know those moments where something happens and our first thing is to act. Maybe what this means is when you're not sure where to go, or when something happens that questions direction or something like that. I don't think this is being lazy. I don't think this is an excuse to slow down and be lazy. I don't think it's an excuse for inaction. I don't think that's what this is saying. To me, what it's saying is measure twice, cut once, aim, fire. Aim. Some entrepreneurs are ready, fire, aim. There might be times where that's okay, right? But there might be other times where you're not sure of the path forward, or you're not, or a situation happens, and rather than reacting, maybe waiting and measuring and waiting on the Lord, waiting patiently for God's answer, God's direction. I know there's so many times in my life. There's a time just last year where it felt like I lacked some direction in some area. Like I was looking for it. I was spending a lot of effort looking for it, but I couldn't find it. And I had to just, I was operating every day. So it's not stopping everything. But in that situation, I came to God and I was just asking him for direction. I came to people that I trusted, and I was asking for direction. And I don't like waiting patiently, but in these situations, I don't think it's like, that didn't feel like waiting. That felt like coming before someone who I know knows better than me and just continuing to ask, like, show me the direction here, show me the direction here. So it's really active. I wrote down in my Bible, like, that waiting is not just listening, it's active. So it's actually asking and it's actually pursuing. right? It's very different than kicking your feet back and waiting. It's pursuing and asking and active. That is a big part of it. So when in that situation in my life, what happened is I got over time a very clear and obvious answer. And it took a long time of waiting and asking and soul searching and thinking and digging and talking to people. I got an obvious answer, and that answer came from multiple places. It was one of those situations where someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I think you're really good at this. I think you should pursue this thing." Where that was like, like a check in my mind on something. It was an indication of something that I was already thinking. This is a friend of mine that's is very attuned to the word of God and gets these words from God, and dropped me a message. I feel like I'm supposed to tell you this. I feel like God's telling me to tell you this. And so downloads to me, this whole feeling that she had. And it was actually exactly what I was feeling as well. And it was just, again, another confidence boost that this is the direction I should move and that it's going to be okay. So however it comes to you, as you pursue, as you knock, as you wait, you will get an answer. And this is the case even if you're not a spiritual person. Like, as you meditate on something, as you focus on something, when there's a situation that your brain is trying to solve a problem, if you open a loop, we know about open loops, right? In marketing, we open loops all the time, right? We open loops so that people can sell themselves and think things over until they actually solve it and sell themselves. You open a loop in your brain around a problem, your brain will then help to solve that problem. And if you're talking to the God of the universe that knows how to solve it, that is the way you kind of solve some of these directional issues. At least for me, I think that's what that's saying here. The next thing he says is he inclined to me and he heard my cry. So first of all, I noticed that waited, it says it doesn't say I patiently wait or I am patiently waiting. It says I waited patiently. I waited is past tense. So this is after the situation and showing the result of it, okay? So David's saying there's a situation, I waited on the Lord patiently. Then he heard me and he inclined to me. He moved towards me. He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay. I did some looking at that part around at different translations. And some translations say he lifted me out of the pit of despair, right? Despair, out of the mud of the mire. And to me, it seems like this is not a literal thing, that this is a mindset thing. And we see David do this a lot, right? He talks to his other self. He talks to his soul. In a lot of my videos, I talk about that you have two selves, right? Like you have to coach your other self. Maybe it's coaching your soul. I don't know. This is a mindset. We've all felt that this is his perspective. This is his state of mind. His state of mind was despair, right? It was in the pit of despair. We've all felt those situations where we feel despair, we feel discouragement, and we don't feel like moving forward. I think this promise here, one of the principles is wait on the Lord. He will hear you. He will bring you up out of the pit of despair, out of that mindset. He'll elevate your mindset. So the kind of antidote to being discouraged and being in despair is to wait on the Lord, to wait on God, to meditate on these things, and it will change your perspective. And I've experienced that. And look, despair and discouragement doesn't help you in everyday life, right? It doesn't help you achieve more things. The state you show up in, we know this, is a big influence on how you act and the results that you get. And so discouragement and despair are not beneficial in any way. And so the promise here is that he'll bring you out of that. And then the result is, and set my feet upon a rock and established my steps. The way I interpret that, and another translation says, he set my feet on solid ground, steadied me as I walked along. My interpretation of that is, he gave me confidence. He set my feet upon a rock. Rock is sturdy. It gives me confidence. I know when you're in discouragement, despair, you don't know your direction. You don't have confidence to move forward. And confidence to move forward, the belief that and the expectation that a certain result's going to come, that is the power, right? Believing the result is a big part of getting the result. But if you're not sure of the direction you're going, you're in despair and discouragement, you're not going to get the result that you're looking for. And so confidence, he set my feet upon a rock. He gave me confidence and established my steps. He gave me direction, right? And so confidence and direction. I know we've all felt that situation, because in business, we've all felt that thing where it's like, where things are clicking, right? This is the direction. I'm confident of that. I can see the vision. I can see the result. And it's a matter of just like running towards it and winning it and achieving it. That's what this does, right? Sets my feet upon a rock, gives me confidence. Establish my steps, gives me direction. Direction is so valuable. We all know that in in what we do. And being an entrepreneur, direction, conviction is so valuable. He's put a new song in my mouth. Praise to our God. I interpret that as new vocabulary. So I think everything we do is praise. We talk about that. Like, we know that praise is not just singing in church. Praise is doing what you do at an excellent level, executing and utilizing talents that God's given you at an excellent level. That's praise in a God-honoring way. I see this as he gave me new vocabulary. And we know the words that we speak are really powerful, right? We know that the words that we speak, I tell my kids that what you say is very likely to happen. It's not magical. It's just that words have power, more power than our society right now thinks and our culture thinks. We throw around words, but your words have power, a lot of power. They have a lot of influence on the results that you get. And we see that throughout life. I'm sure you can see a lot of examples of that. We see that throughout our culture with athletes and entrepreneurs and people who are very successful at things. We see that throughout the Bible, that words have power. And so I see that as he gave me a new vocabulary. We know how we talk while we're discouraged versus after, while we have confidence in our direction, right? We speak with confidence. We speak with clarity. We speak with strength. We speak with positivity. We speak with belief. We speak uplifting things to other people. And then many will see it in fear and will trust in the Lord. I just thought, like, and that's like kind of like a little section where that little section ends. I know it goes on to verse 4, but at first I thought that was an interesting way to end it. And then I realized that if you do this, you act this out this way, right? You're discouraged, so you wait patiently. He pulls you out. He establishes your feet, gives you direction. He puts you on a rock. He gives you confidence, puts a new song in your mouth. He changes your vocabulary. And now you're living in a different path, in a different type of life. You've transformed from discouragement, lack of direction, not successful, to confidence and direction and ambition, energy, and speaking the right words. And so you've done this transformation, right? When others see that, they're gonna think that that's amazing. You're going to be an example. And when they see that and they understand why, many will see it in fear and will trust in the Lord. Fear, and from a different translation, is not as we understand it exactly, but it's another translation says it this way: many will see what he has done and be amazed, and they will put their trust in the Lord. It's interesting in business, as Christians, no matter where you are on the spectrum of faith, but for me, a lot of Christians believe, like, you might feel like you're to minister to people or to help people or to be a light, that might only happen in certain circles. Maybe it happens on church and Sunday, that kind of thing. But the truth is like, the way you do business without even talking about anything else, the way you execute and live every day is an example and can be a light to inspire people to trust in God, right? Because if that's where you get your strength and your purpose and your meaning, also the principles and tactics and strategies for the success, which there are all the success principles in the Bible. It's insane for being successful at anything. When you're that beautiful example of a high performance, God-honoring life, I believe that. That's actually part of my personal mission statement, which I'll get into that another time. But when you can be that example, others will see that and trust in the Lord. That's what this says. And maybe that's the job that you're supposed to do. That's one of the roles you're supposed to play in the kingdom of heaven, is to just do what you do at an excellent level. Point back to God, honor him, and others will see that and trust in God. We know that when you're really good at something, other people want to admire that. So other people admire it, they respect it, and other people want to learn from it. You can be better at pointing to God when you're really good at something than when you're really bad at something. You can be better at pointing to God when you're really rich and successful and God honoring than if you're really poor and weak and not God honoring. And that might be uncomfortable to some people, because some people think being poor and weak is godly, and that is not a godly principle. Satan is the god of lack. God is the God of abundance. He really is. When you're excellent at something, it will point to God. Others will see it and believe and trust in the Lord. I'll end by saying this. I'll just read the first couple sentences. Waiting is much more difficult. This is a commentary on this verse. Waiting is much more difficult than walking. This is from Streams in the Desert, actually. For waiting requires patience, and patience is a rare virtue. As I started, I said that patience and waiting is not the thing that an entrepreneur loves to do. But we know that patience is one of the fruits of the Spirit. We know that patience is powerful if used the right way. And so think about it like this: ready, aim, fire, rather than ready, fire, aim. When you don't have direction, maybe take some time to actually wait and ask for direction. Waiting might actually bring the result faster. There's a term in the Navy SEALs, I believe it's Navy SEALs, which is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so that's this idea that calculated movements actually, where there's not a lot of waste, where there's high probability of success, are faster than just doing things fast without thinking about them. Patience can be powerful. Waiting can be fast if you think about it the right way. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope this helps you live a high performance and God honoring life. Until next time, thanks and never stop growing.